Sun Wukong is the definition of an unbreakable spirit. Even though he is often arrogant and rebellious, deep down he cares about his loved ones more than he shows. However, by challenging the gods of heaven, he becomes trapped in a cycle of hate and revenge that will eventually drag him and those he loves down. To understand how we got to this point in his story, let's start from the beginning. This story starts with Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, who we see preparing for battle. In the distance, we can see the gods of heaven approaching, ready to attack the mountain. Sun Wukong doesn't waste any time. He jumps onto his flying cloud to stop them. When he arrives, we realize it's the 5 ancient gods and hundreds of soldiers. As the soldiers prepare to attack, Sun Wukong says that his master and the scriptures are safe, and that all he wants is to live on the mountain, free from the chains imposed by gods and their so-called merits. He understands why the gods don't trust him. He gets why they've sent soldiers to make him serve them once again. But he rebukes them, calling them bastards for attacking his kind. Then, on the shoulder of one of these ancient gods, we see the god Erlang and his dog, Tianquan. Tianquan's the first to attack, but Erlang stops him, calling him a stupid dog. He reminds Tianquan that Sun Wukong isn't just any monkey, he's a monkey of merit, a monkey who was even named Buddha in the past, and that no one, except Erlang himself, can challenge him. Erlang tells Sun Wukong that he usually doesn't fight someone he has already defeated, but this time, he'll give him 2 options. If Sun Wukong loses, Erlang will take him to the celestial court, and the mountain will be destroyed. But if Erlang loses, he'll take revenge, and the gods will destroy the mountain anyway. Basically, he's saying Sun Wukong has no choice. Sun Wukong hears all this and he just laughs. He says Erlang is the biggest liar of them all, and that it'll be fun to rip out his 3rd eye and eat it, leaving the other 2 so he can watch as Sun Wukong takes down all the gods of the celestial court and their soldiers. The battle begins with both exchanging blows. Wukong tells Erlang that his spear is dull. Erlang gets angry, and they clash their weapons, sending everyone on the battlefield flying. The ancient gods join the battle, so Sun Wukong decides to turn into stone. Erlang takes advantage of this moment to attack him with his divine axe. Wukong dodges it, and we see the sky split apart along with a mountain. Wukong gets angry and says this is not a fair duel, telling Erlang to follow him to the forest for a real fight. Both transform into birds to head to the forest, but suddenly, Sun Wukong is affected by the crown. Erlang seizes the moment, charging at Wukong and crashing him into the mountain to finally defeat him. Thousands of years later, an old monkey tells us that this was the last story of a hero who valued his freedom above all. Although he attained the status of Buddha, the heavenly laws bothered him because what he longed for most was to return and enjoy the simple pleasures with his people. The old monkey tells us that within the stone lie his remains and that his spirit still lingers in 6 relics that were separated and hidden. These must be recovered to bring Sun Wukong back to life. But, due to his age, he cannot do it, so one of the young monkeys is destined to recover the 6 relics. And so, this new story begins. The first thing that we need to know is these events happen after the adventures in the novel Journey to the West, which tells the story of the monk Xuanzang, Zhu Beiji, and Sun Wukong on their journey to find the sacred scriptures. That's why Sun Wukong mentions that his master and the scriptures are safe. From the start of the novel, Sun Wukong is known for being arrogant and rebellious, but by this point in the story he has reached enlightenment. Thanks to that, he realized that what he truly wanted was to enjoy the simple pleasures of life and spend time with his loved ones. In our reality, many people, even after achieving great things, feel the need to return to their roots. This message reminds us that success isn't always about external achievements or following the rules. It's about finding satisfaction and freedom in our choices. It also invites us to reflect on what we truly love and how we can balance our responsibilities. Sun Wukong reminds us of the choices we must make in life and the importance of following our own path. Now, the chosen one must find his way and take responsibility for his decisions, facing different challenges that will shape his life. But what stops Sun Wukong from being free? And why don't the gods support his choices? We'll see that later on. Chapter 1, Black Cloud, Red Fire. Deep in the forest, 2 wolves find a peach along the path and celebrate their good luck. But when they bite into it, they discover that it's no ordinary peach, it's a young monkey. This monkey isn't just any monkey, he's the Destined One. The wolves try to capture him, but the young monkey defeats them with ease and continues on his way. Soon, the monkey arrives at a small temple hidden deep in the forest. There, he meets a sage who calls himself the guardian of Black Wind Mountain. This sage seems to know everything about the monkey and says something surprising: "I've been waiting for you. You are the living image of Sun Wukong." The sage explains that, long ago, the temple was burned down along with the goodwill of men, an idea that will become meaningful later on. As they continue, they encounter a massive bull named Bullguard, far too powerful for the young monkey. But the sage teaches him a spell to immobilize the bull, and with this new skill, they manage to defeat him. Next, the sage transforms the monkey into a golden cicada so he can travel undetected through the forest. This transformation takes him to the temple gates, where a giant wolf named Link Suzy appears. After a fierce battle, the monkey defeats him and keeps going. Along the way, the monkey meets an old man who teaches him a special method to guide lost souls back onto the right path. The old man blesses a magical gourd that the monkey will use for this task. As the journey continues, the monkey faces many demons, or yaoguais. One of them tells him, "This adventure will bring you misfortune." But the monkey presses on. Finally, he reaches the Temple of Guani, where he faces the elder Jinchi in battle. After defeating him, Jinchi grants the monkey a new power, a powerful headbutt, the same one Jinchi used to end his own life. The King of Black Wind shows up next, revealing that he rebuilt the temple and rewrote the sacred texts. After being defeated, he escapes in a cloud of smoke to the top of the mountain. The sage reappears and teaches the monkey the cloud step, a skill that allows him to catch up to the king. When he reaches the highest point, the king reveals his true form, a massive black bear. The monkey defeats him, and the bear begs for forgiveness, blaming the celestial court for his actions. The sage confirms that the bear didn't act alone and was under a higher influence. The monkey then gains his first relic, a bird with bright eyes. This relic activates a vision that reveals Jinchi's tragic backstory. In the vision, we see a young Jinchi meeting the black bear, who tempts him with a sack full of gold coins. Jinchi, blinded by greed, goes to a village and becomes enchanted by the beautiful kasayas of the monks. Over time, his ambition grows, and he accumulates power and wealth. One day, the monk Xuanzang, part of Sun Wukong's team, passes by the Temple of Guani and decides to visit Jinchi, showing him his beautiful kasaya. Consumed by greed, Jinchi orders his disciples to set fire to the temple and steal the kasayas. In the end, his ambition leads to his downfall, and he loses his life. The bear steals the kasaya, but a lake goddess punishes him by placing a prohibition crown on his head, sealing his fate. In this story, we can see how Jinchi is consumed by his greed, but that's not all. If we analyze his personality, we realize that he acts in a Machiavellian, narcissistic, and psychopathic way. In psychology, this is known as the dark triad, a theory proposed in 2002 by psychologists Delroy Paulhus and Kevin M. Williams. From the beginning, Jinchi showed these three personality traits. As a child, he dreamed of power and wealth and had a self-centered attitude, which are typical traits of a narcissist. Later, when he reached a high rank in the temple, he was not satisfied with his position and tried to take Xuanzang's life, showing a lack of empathy and a willingness to do anything to achieve his goals. With this, he fits the profile of the dark triad: Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. This story teaches us an important lesson. Greed can lead us to do terrible things, not just to ourselves, but to also those around us. Sometimes, we need to learn to appreciate what we already have, because the relentless pursuit of more can lead us down a destructive path. Chapter 2: Yellow Sands, Desolate Dusk. In this chapter, we enter the realm of the Yellow Wind, a barren land with towering cliffs. In the distance, faint music plays, coming from a headless monk sitting under a tree. The monk stands and walks toward the body of the Chosen One, lying on a rock with arrows stuck in his chest. Using his magic, the monk heals him and warns him to be more careful before leaving. The Chosen One continues his journey, passing a small pond. After climbing some stairs, he finds a ruined temple where two rats are arguing. The second prince and his father, the Rat King. Smelling something strange, the Rat King notices the Chosen One's presence. Without hesitation, the second prince attacks. The Chosen One defeats him, and the Rat King, terrified, flees to find his first son. At a cliff, the Rat King cuts his arm, letting his blood drip to summon his son. The Rat Prince appears but has his own plans. He devours his father instead. The Chosen One then fights the Rat Prince and defeats him. Later, he enters a temple with a blood pool where the Vanguard tiger is feeding. The tiger brags about killing all the rats in the kingdom. With no other choice, the Chosen One prepares for battle. After a fierce fight, he defeats the tiger, which turns to dust. The headless monk reappears and teaches the Chosen One the art of the solid rock before vanishing again. By completing a statue in the temple, a hidden underground tunnel is revealed. The Chosen One follows the path and finds the Yellow Wind Sage, a giant weasel holding a head in its arms. The battle begins as the sage summons sandstorms with his staff and strikes from underground with a trident. However, using his new abilities, the Chosen One finally defeats him. The weasel drops the head, and the headless monk reappears once more. He reveals that he was the true Yellow Wind Sage and that the weasel was only a traitorous disciple. With a single breath, the sage reveals the second relic and gives it to the Chosen One. With the relic in hand, we see the second cinematic. A traveler walks through the mountains and finds an injured fox caught in a trap. Feeling sorry for it, he frees the fox and takes it to his cabin. The next morning, he finds that the fox has turned into a beautiful woman. Surprised, he covers her with his clothes and cares for her until she recovers. Over time, they grow close and share many happy moments. They have a child who later leaves the mountains. They then have 2 more children. One day, the man comes home to find his family dead, except for his wife, who, in her fox form, has killed their children. Terrified, the man wakes up and realizes it was just a nightmare. The injured fox is still there. The next morning, he makes his choice. He leaves the cabin wearing a fox fur coat and continues his journey. The cinematic ends with the line, "Humans, beasts, Buddhas, Yaoguais. Each has its own path, some higher, some lower. None should change what is destined. Am I right, son Wukong?" In this story, we see the traveler facing his own decisions and the fate of those he tries to help. The injured fox, vulnerable and trapped, awakens his compassion, prompting him to intervene in her destiny. However, throughout the dream or vision, this intervention turns into a series of unexpected and painful consequences. The fox transforms into a human, and they start a family, but tragedy strikes when she reverts to her original form and destroys everything they built together. Finally, upon awakening and seeing the fox still wounded, he decides not to get involved further and continues on his path alone, symbolized by the fox fur coat. This story symbolizes the dilemma between following our instincts and the human desire to change the natural course of things. Chapter 3. White Snow, Ice Cold. The chapter, titled White Snow, Ice Cold, continues with a young monk who finds himself in a cave that serves as a temple, surrounded by statues of deities. The young man seems to become yet another statue. Shortly after, the Chosen One appears and, upon leaving the temple, encounters many petrified bodies. The Guardian, upon learning of the Chosen One's presence, decides to awaken the petrified beings to fight for him. After they are defeated, the Guardian Monkey furiously enters the battle, striking with his sword, but he is no match for the Chosen One, who easily defeats him. Later, a bird with a man's head appears, claiming to have seen the Chosen One's future and warning that his gifts may lead to his downfall. However, the destined monkey remains resolute. The bird then decides to transform him into a bat and guides him to an altar. There, it advises him to go to the lake temple, where he may find what he seeks. The Destined One takes his advice and heads towards the frozen lake. Upon arriving at the temple gates, he senses something beneath the lake. The young monk appears and welcomes him. To test his courage, he decides to release one of his prisoners, Kong Jin Loon, a white dragon. The battle begins as the Destined One dodges the dragon's attacks and blocks its electric strikes. After exchanging blows, the white dragon is defeated and falls from the sky, plunging both into the frozen lake. The destined monkey manages to emerge alive, but before he can recover, he is intercepted by a griffin that swiftly attacks and knocks him out. When the young monkey wakes up, he finds himself imprisoned in the pagoda realm. Seeing no guards, he kicks the door open to escape. Upon stepping outside, the monkey encounters an old man who previously blessed his gourd. This time, recognizing the Destined One, he decides to teach him a powerful fire spell. The monkey continues his journey until he reaches a stone door with a bell in the center. There, he meets a woman named Kong Ji Star, who seems to be speaking to someone trapped in the bell, Zhu Beiji, the court admiral. Zhu Beiji asks her to free him, but she reminds him that he can only be released if he abides by the heavenly court's rules. He refuses, knowing that the destined monkey is nearby and will free him. Kong Ji insists that no one can destroy the bell. Enraged, Zhu Beiji strikes the bell's interior, shaking the mountain and awakening a giant turtle carrying the mountain on its back, known as the General. Kong Ji learns of the Destined One's presence and tells him that his worst mistake was leaving the pagoda. The battle begins, with Kong Ji launching lightning bolts and electric attacks onto the ground. Despite using her best moves, they are not enough to defeat the young monkey. Cornered, Kong Ji decides to escape in her dragon form, but the young monkey clings to her scales. Once in the air, the monkey repeatedly strikes her, causing her to crash into the bell. On solid ground, the young monkey watches as the admiral is freed, revealing himself as a small boar. Zhu Beiji curses Kong Ji, who lies weakened on the ground, and leads the young monkey to the turtle, promising the general that he will destroy the temple and avenge his brother, the serpent. Upon reaching the temple, they encounter a small monk who claims to be seeing Buddha, but Zhu Beiji, unable to see him, doesn't believe it. The little monk explains that he can only be seen if one's heart is sincere, and he asks the Destined One to venerate the 4 Buddha statues to see the truth. After completing the task, they return to the monk, who tells them that Buddha has always been on the mountain. Skeptical, Zhu Beiji attacks the monk, who dodges and escapes. The monkey decides to follow him, and upon entering the temple, the little monk tells the story of his friend Jinchuanzi, who questioned the sovereignty of kings and believed every soul could attain enlightenment. Later, he fell from grace, was reborn as a mortal, and took on 3 disciples who met cruel fates, surrendering himself to darkness. The little monk questions the monkey as to why he follows Buddha's path when he himself could become one. Finally, he reveals his true form, a fat old man who proclaims himself the Buddha of the future, though his true name is Golden Brows. The fight begins, and Golden Brows attacks with his staff, creating powerful electric impacts. In the confined space, the monk has the advantage and stuns the Destined One with ranged attacks. Then he uses his soul-guarding sack, sending the Destined One to a dimension within the sack, where the young monkey succumbs to temptation and becomes an old monkey. Returning to his original form, he faces Golden Brows a second time. After defeating him, Golden Brows attempts to flee, claiming it's pointless to fight for others, as they'll betray him in the end. However, he falls into a frozen lake, revealing himself to be an imposter who had taken the form of the little monk. Despite this, the real monk helps them recover the relic as Golden Brows was bound to it. Upon pulling the relic from the water, the 3rd cinematic sequence begins. In the middle of the sea, some fishermen found a strange creature floating in the water. They were curious and a bit scared but decided to catch it and take it back to their village. When they got there, the creature woke up. The villagers, afraid of what it might do, stayed back. But then, something surprising happened. The creature tore its own skin, and shiny pearls started falling out of the wound. The villagers, who were very poor and hungry, couldn't believe what they saw. The creature noticed their problems and decided to help them. It healed the sick, made the weather better so they could catch fish, and gave them hope. The villagers were so thankful that they started to see the creature as a god. One day, during a meeting to share the pearls, a greedy man attacked the creature. He hurt it badly, and even more pearls came out of the wound. Seeing this, the villagers went wild. They all attacked the creature, ripping it apart to take as many pearls as they could. But their greed destroyed them. After some time, the whole village was gone, ruined by their selfishness. In the end, the creature was left alone, without its skin, weak, and close to death. The main theme of this story is whether human beings are evil by nature or if circumstances push them to become so. At the end of the cinematic, we see the creature having a debate with a monk named Jinchazi, who tells it that it has won and proven its point once again, referring to how mankind, by nature, was consumed by selfishness and greed. According to Thomas Hobbes, human beings are inherently evil, therefore, in order to coexist, an absolute power is needed, an authoritarian law that controls the aggressive impulses that arise from everyone's selfish motivations. And while what Hobbes said may be true, we are all shaped by different circumstances. In the end, we are the ones who decide who we want to be and what path to take. This story serves as a warning about balance and gratitude. The creature gave the villagers enough to survive and thrive, but their inability to be content and respect this balance led to their destruction. In daily life, we are reminded that, although aspiring to improve our circumstances is normal, losing our ethics and respect for others and our surroundings in the pursuit of our ambitions can be devastating. Thank you for watching this far. This wraps up the first part of our analysis, leaving the last 3 chapters for a second video where we'll dive into even more fascinating topics. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I truly appreciate your support.